Black women, what do you do when the life that you envision for yourself doesn't look like the life that you're living now? Have you ever stopped and looked around and said, this is not where I thought I'd be or who I thought I'd be by now? If you've ever asked those kinds of questions of yourself, then this conversation is for you. Hello all, if you're new to me, my name is Dr. Sherelle MacArthur, otherwise and better known as Dr. Mac. I am an associate professor of education, an educational researcher, an author, a speaker, a wellness and life coach, and a mommy. And just like you, I am in transition. Now, let me tell you why. When I was an undergrad, shout out to Grambling State University, HBCU alum, HBCU proud, I wanted to be a child psychologist. And my best friend at the time can tell you this, not like you know who she is. But she could tell you that I would envision for myself a life where I would schedule my clients in the mornings, for example, especially if my child had a field trip, right? Or if I wanted to meet up with my husband for lunch. So I would make sure that I attended to all of my clients by a certain point in the afternoon so I can skip off to a field trip with the child, or so I can go meet my husband for midday lunch, right? So being a wife, a mother, and a career woman were always intertwined in my envisioning of my life, even at 18 and 19 years old. And when I was an undergrad, I really wanted to be a mommy of 4 to 5 children. And I think that shifted a little bit when I got into my 20s to maybe 3 to 4 children. Okay. Today, I'm not currently married and I'm a mother of 1. So the life that I envision for myself doesn't align with the life that I'm currently living. And so there's some areas where I'm reconciling who I thought I'd be or the life I thought I'd be living with the one that I'm living now. Here's the thing. It doesn't stop me from recognizing how privileged I am, the life that I've been able to afford to my son, and still say, there's a little bit of grief around the notion that my house isn't filled with children versus the absolute noise that one teenage boy can garner by himself, especially if he's playing video games, okay? I know that my life with 3, 4, or 5 children would be drastically different from today. And maybe somebody is watching and saying, no, it doesn't have to be. And for me, it would be, because the kind of life that I wanted to afford to my children, I would not be able to afford that if I had multiples. Okay. So for example, when my son turned had his golden birthday. If you don't know what a golden birthday is, it's when you turn your age of your date of birth. So if your birthday is April 25th, for example, your golden birthday was when you turned 25. If your birthday is September 19th, it was when you turned 19. Okay, so when my son had his golden birthday, I knew how much he loved animals, how interested he was on going on a safari. And so I packed him up. We went to Nairobi, Kenya for 5 days. We went on a 2-day safari. We had an absolutely amazing time. If I was a mother of 5, that means that I would need to take 5 children on a golden birthday celebration. Was that going to be a trip for just me and that child? Was that going to be all of us together? That's a lot to afford, right? Even if I were married to their father, that's now a trip for 7, 5 times. My son has been around the world multiple times. Of the 50 United States, he's been to 17 or 18. Anything that this son has shown interest in, from drums to piano to karate to debate, his mother has been able to ensure that he was in organizations and places and aftercare and extracurricular so that he can gain the skills and enjoy the experiences of those things that his heart desired. Whenever there was a field trip, Dr. Mack was signing up to a 10 set field trip. Actually, my last field trip with this boy, who is now in the 9th grade, was when he was in the 7th grade, and they did a financial literacy field trip here in Atlanta. And I love that I was able to be anywhere I needed to be for this child for the last 14 years. I loved that anything that he desired to engage in, those kinds of activities, his mother was able to cut a check to ensure that he could gain those skills. If I was a mother of 3, 4, and 5 children, now again, many of you may be mothers of multiples, but I know what my money looks like and what I can't afford. And I could afford it for the 2 of us. I would not have been able to afford it for the 4, 5, and 6 of us. Right? And so that would have meant that the life that I've created for this son might have to look very, very different than a life for 5 children. I understand that, right? I can rationalize and find the logic in it and still say, but what if I had a house of children right now? The one wouldn't be leaning on me to find something to do. Go do something with your brother. Go have fun with your sister, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with recognizing what we wanted and reconciling what we have, right? I think the hardest part isn't the things that didn't happen. The hardest part is grieving a version of myself that never existed, right? I never met that married version of myself. I've never met the mommy of 5 me, right? But I've been loyal to that vision of myself for decades, even though she was just a part of my imagination. Can anybody else understand this? Does this resonate with any of you? If it does, please drop in the comments, Dr. Mack, I understand. Okay. So because I am an educator as well, I've been thinking through this idea of reconciliation, and I have a couple of points that I wanted to share with you today. So if I'm looking down, that's why. And the first point that I want to share is that the gap is real and it does deserve to be grieved. Now, psychologists call this ambiguous loss. It is grieving the unlived life, because for many of us, our sense of self is often built on a future self narrative. And now, if you built a future self narrative when you were 18, 19 years old, and you are no longer 18, 19 years old, it's reasonable and normal for there to be some grief around the life that you have not had the opportunity to live. And as you continue to age and that vision has not materialized or manifested, it might be you saying to yourself, I may never get to see this life, right? And that's the thing. Some of us aren't divorcing ourselves from that vision. We aren't really letting her go. We're just saying, okay, I have 5 more years to make this happen. Okay, I'm not yet in perimenopause, so I could still get 1 more baby out. Won't be 3, 4, 5, but maybe I could have 1. Anybody else do this kind of rationalizing the vision in comparison to the lived life, right? And I don't know how much we allow women, I don't know how much we allow Black women to really grieve that unlived life, right? Especially if you have accomplished some things, right? Dr. Mack said that I am an associate professor of education, an educational researcher, a speaker, an author, a wellness and life coach. And somebody would say, girl, isn't that enough? You took your son to Kenya. Isn't that enough? How dare you get on here and say you grieve in a life that you didn't get to live and look at the life you live in. I can be both blessed and privileged and recognize that and still have a longing, even though for me at this point it's now light, a longing for a life that I had once desired for myself and held on to so tightly. Through my 20s, through my 30s, I was still holding on to the notion that I would be married with 5 kids. After I had my son, I was still holding on to the notion that he will have brothers and sisters and right? So it took a very long time to relinquish my grip and stronghold on the vision I created for my life when I was 18. Somebody understands. If you don't understand, we're going to keep talking about it. But I'm really wanting and hoping that this reaches the woman who heart to heart gets that experience. The grief is legitimate. If you understand this, I need you to also understand that your grief is legitimate. And many of us have never given ourselves permission to feel it because we are working to be grateful, because we think that if we don't show gratitude at all times, somehow we are spitting in the face of God or our life. And that's not true. God knows the desires of your heart. I could say thank you every day, and he would still know what I long for and desire for. The two can coexist, sis, and that's what I want you to know. And I'm hoping this conversation frees someone, gives someone the ability to breathe easier, to exhale, to say, finally, I feel seen, heard, or understood. Okay? All right. But before you can reconcile where you are, you have to be honest about what you're mourning in the first place, right? Is there a version of yourself or a life that you imagine that you've never allowed yourself to grieve? Breathe and respond to that question. Is there a version of yourself or a life that you imagine that you never allowed yourself to grieve? Drop a word in the comments if you can answer that question. Just one word that describes her. So for me, well, this would be two words. A powerful mom. That's what came to me. A powerful mom. And power for me was in my ability to be actively involved and engaged with my children. That's what power meant to me. Am I still a powerful mom? Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. No one could tell me I'm not a phenomenal mother. I already know. I don't have any doubts in that area that anybody could say anything that makes me question who I am as a mom. I am already a powerful mother. In my imagination, she was juggling all these children. So that's the imagination. Drop your 2 to 3 word phrase of who you're envisioning of yourself are, okay? Point number 2, the picture was never the point. The picture was never the point. The vision you carried, the woman you thought you'd be, she was not a destination. She was a compass. She was a guide. She was a map. She was pointing you towards something you valued. That vision of myself was pointing me towards stability and love and purpose and significance. That vision of myself was all the things that I didn't feel like I had. And I wanted to be able to provide. And I wanted to do it for him and her and her and him and her. Right? And again, hear me when I'm saying I've still been able to do those things for the one child that I have. So the picture was never truly the point. Okay? The picture became the container or the vessel that held the values that you aligned with at the time. And if you still align with those values today, we ask ourselves, then in what ways am I still ascribing to and being those values? I didn't lose what I wanted to do. I just didn't get to do it as much, right? So the container may have changed, but the values that you were carrying within said container, within said vessel, those still belong to you, sis. Those are still yours. Those have not changed. And they are still worth pursuing if you so desire. Perhaps just not in the shape that you originally envisioned or imagined. So the question I hope that you don't ask is, why didn't I become her? I hope that's not the question that you are sitting with, right? Why didn't I become her? What were the barriers that kept me from being her? The question is, what was she pointing me toward? And how do I get there from here if you don't feel like you're there now? So I want you to take a moment and think, if you're listening to this right now, think about the woman you imagined that you would be. What does she represent to you? What were the values that were being held in that container, in that vessel of that imagination? And tell me in the comments. Let's free ourselves a little bit. Drop it in the comments. Share it. Let another sister chime in, respond to you. Same sis, I agree. Let me chime in, okay? Here is the third and final point. But don't go anywhere, because I'm still going to give you some reflective questions to think about. The third point is that reconciliation is not settling. Reconciliation is not settling, okay? Reconciliation is an honest reflection of where I am now, who I am now. It allows me the space to be honest with myself. It allows me the space to grieve, right? To acknowledge what happened, what didn't happen, and how the values that are contained in that vessel of my imagination, I was still able to ascribe to those values in the life that I led and am leading, right? And so it enables me with a clear head, clarity, and clear vision to ask myself, okay, well, what's possible from here? So many people get stuck at, I'm not who I wanted to be. I'm not who I wanted to be. This is a large portion of the clients that I have. Women are stuck in resignation, because resignation is like, well, this is just how it is. I didn't get the man. I didn't get the house. I didn't get the kids. God knew the desires of my heart. Why didn't he bring these things to pass for me? It's stuck in resignation, that this is just how it is. It didn't happen. It didn't come to pass. I guess this is what it'll be. Here I am. Versus reconciliation, which allows me to be reflective over my life, to grieve those parts of myself or parts of my life that did not come to pass, and then say, but what is still possible? That's a moving forward. That's a continuing on the path and the journey that resignation doesn't allow, because I'm sitting and sulking in the funk and the heaviness of what wasn't, what did not become. Does that make sense? And here's the thing that I need you, sis, to understand, is that you are not late. You are not too late in your own life. You are not late, sis. You are not late. My maternal grandmother, Grandma Davis, passed away at 81 or 80. She passed in January 2012, so she would have been 81 in March. My paternal grandmother, when she passed away in April 2020, she was 103 years old. She would have been 104 in August of that year. Well, why am I saying this? Why do you care about my grandma's ages? Because if God bless me to live to the age of Grandma Davis, I'm only halfway there. If God bless me to live to the age of Grandma Louise, I'm not even halfway there. Which means I'm not too late to my life. There is still time. There are still places, spaces, and opportunities that will come to pass for me. And the same is true for you. Sometimes we're so busy looking at the food on somebody else's plate that the food on ours is getting cold. You're not too late. You're not too late, sis. And we are not the sum of our detours. Some of us got off the beaten path and we got so pissed off about it. I live in Atlanta, okay? It's about 80 degrees today in March, which means as soon as I step outside that door, I'm going to be in line with another 4 million people who wanted to enjoy the 80-degree weather. And there's always construction. So there's going to be some lanes closed. There's going to be some traffic accidents. I'm going to get off the highway and take the back roads because I'm from here, right? Those are detours that still get me where I want to go. You may have hit some detours, but it's still just a part of your path. It's still just a part of your journey. And as hard as that is for us to recognize sometimes, that's part of the reconciliation. Because if you get stuck at resignation, you sit your car on that highway, everybody goes around, and then you like, look at all those people up ahead. Well, baby, just move. Put your foot on the gas and go. Take the detour if you have to, but keep moving forward because you are not too late to your own life and you are not the sum of your detours. Okay? You are potentially in the middle of your journey. And that's not a bad place to be. So I want to give you some reflective questions. If you are sitting still for this, won't you grab your journal or a notebook or the notes in your phone, open that app up. If you are driving for this, then look at what time we are in the video so that you could come back to these reflective questions later. Now, I give homework to my clients from time to time. Why? Because they are with me for an hour. They are with themselves always. So whether they see me weekly, twice a month, or monthly, I was about to say bi-weekly, but that makes me go off on a soapbox rant. And I don't want to do that in this video. Ask me in the comments why I hate bi-weekly and I'll tell you. Okay. Some clients I see weekly, twice a month, or monthly. And regardless of how much time we spend together, that's just 1 hour when we see each other and they're with themselves the rest of the time. And so I like to give them tasks, challenges, or reflective work to support who they are becoming. And so what I'd like for you to consider is to write a letter to the woman you thought you'd be by now. Dear me. Tell her what you think happened. What were the detours? Right? Maybe you thought you'd take a straight path. What were the detours? But I also want you, sis, to tell her what you learned. You've learned some things. You've learned quite a few things. This hasn't been a life of just not. You haven't just been running and ripping and haven't had any learnings from said run or rip. So tell her what you learned. And this might be a good exercise for some people. Okay? And then also tell her what you're still fighting for. But baby, I'm still looking at CNA programs to join. I just found a phlebotomist program that I intend to go to. I'm going back and I'm getting my master's. I'm still out on the dating scene because I want to have a partner. Whatever. What are you still fighting for? Tell her. So she could have some room to breathe too. Maybe she's holding her breath. Maybe she's sitting with some level of anxiety over what hasn't happened. And because you carry her with you, you feel like she feels. Does that make sense? I also want you to consider what expectations of your life came from you and which ones were handed to you by somebody else. Remember, and which ones were born out of trauma, perhaps, or experiences from your childhood or adolescence. Remember that I've told you since we've been in this conversation that Dr. Mack wanted to be a particular kind of parent because I didn't feel like that was the parenting that I received. So I created this vision for myself and my life, and I held on to it for decades because it was the little girl in me who wanted to make sure that when I have kids, they don't feel like this because I felt like that, right? But was that fair to me? Was that fair to the adult me? Young me, childhood me deserved some things too. But childhood me made some big dreams. And if adult me isn't careful, then I begin to sit and sulk in a place because I wasn't able to do something that a 16-year-old self desperately needed for her 16-year-old self. but what I've been able to surpass doing for my 14-year-old son.